If you have a child who has anxiety around upcoming events, struggles with memory of the past, or is impulsive and really struggles to understand consequences, watch this video. I'm Dr. Anthony Pellegrino, and for the past decade, I've been helping families understand and change the trajectory of their child's brain development so they can blossom into their full potential as human beings. On this channel, we've broken down the trajectory of brain development into 8 separate hierarchies, so be sure to smash the subscribe button to get access to all of those. But today we're going to be discussing the specific hierarchy of how the concept of time develops in a child's brain. This is my personal favorite because this is the hierarchy that I personally most struggled with as a child. From lack of memory and recall to being the kiddo who was constantly forgetting my homework, my backpack, leaving things places, and never bringing my books home from school. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that later. But first, remember that a child's brain is not fully developed at birth. It develops based on the input that it receives from the bottom up, from the back to the front, from the inside out, and from right to left. A child who doesn't adapt to physical, chemical, or emotional stressors, especially due to subluxation in the nervous system, will get stuck in a fight or flight response in which their brain will start to deflect off the typical path of development. So let's think about what this looks like. Babies don't really care about the future. They don't really care about the past. One of the reasons we love them so much is because they are 100% in the current moment. And when it comes to how time develops in the brain, they are in what we call the present. Around 1 to 3 years old, we start to ascend this hierarchy where we can actually start to recall and remember parts of the past. And from there, we can start to comprehend the concept of future. We will often meet a child whose nervous system is stuck in the present state. Their brain doesn't do a great job of storing and recalling the past. And this can look like children who struggle with, as I mentioned earlier, memory and recall, constantly forgetting things. And kiddos like me. I was always a really smart kid, especially with math and science, which involved me figuring out a lot of how things worked. But if you were to ask me to recite historical facts or repeat things that I just read, absolutely not. There was no way I was going to be able to do that. Something a lot of parents can relate to as well is that I was always forgetting to do my homework. Even though I was an A student during middle school, they had a special program that they designed just for me. In 6th or 8th grade, at the end of every single class, I had to get my teacher to sign off on what my homework was and what books were needed to complete it. At the end of the day, I had to stop by the guidance office so that a counselor could look through my list of homework, look through the books that were needed, and actually go through my backpack to make sure I actually brought all of those books home. I was that bad. This is how often I was forgetting to do my homework and forgetting to bring the books home that were required to do my homework. I wasn't really thinking about that concept of the future. I was really stuck in present time. And this can show up in other ways as well. For a lot of kiddos who are stuck in present, this is going to show up looking like something like anxiety, especially surrounding future events, because we can't predict or understand the future. We're going to struggle with things like consequences, because we can't comprehend what might happen again in the future. We're going to have trouble following through, etc. So now that we understand what's really happening in the brain, it's important to remember that these are just behaviors. If your child is struggling with this, it doesn't mean that they're a bad kid. Behaviors are behaviors. They aren't bad. What they are is a window into how a brain is functioning. They tell us that your child is stuck. So if this is you, if your child is stuck, our number one priority is to reconnect the brain and the body and get our children out of this fight or flight response. We must correct subluxation, which can cause an imbalance of input from the body reaching the brain, which again is how the brain developed. By correcting subluxation in the nervous system by our neurologically based chiropractor, we can start to allow our children's body to better adapt to physical, chemical, and emotional stressors that they are inevitably going to encounter. When they can adapt to more stress, this helps their nervous system get out of this fight or flight response so it can continue to develop in the trajectory that we expect, from the bottom up, from the back to the front, from the inside out, and from right to left. Number 2, let's employ some right now strategies to meet them where they're at on this hierarchy. So let's put on our brain-based lens and look at this. For a child who is stuck in the present, is a consequence in the future appropriate? Saying something like, Johnny, if you do this, you're gonna get X, Y, or Z taken away for a week. Is that effective? Does it make sense? No, because they can't comprehend the future. They only care about right now. So what can we do? Before we get to consequences, let's talk about what we can do proactively. We can help to decrease stress by using visual calendars for upcoming events. We can bring in pictures, we can bring in drawings. Better yet, we can involve them in the process. For example, going into a new school or school year can be very stressful. So what we tell our parents to do is to ask the school for permission to go in when there is no one or very limited people there. The lack of all of the craziness of everybody running around lowers demand, lowers anxiety for our children, and helps them be better able to handle and process this. What we want to do is go to the different classrooms, go look at everything, go find the bathroom, talk about what the path looks like, and take pictures of Johnny in each of those different spots. We take those pictures and we hang them up all over so Johnny constantly has access to it and he can look at them every day. Same thing with upcoming events. Who's going to be there? Where is it going to be? Have fun with it. Take pictures. Involve Johnny in the process of picking out the pictures. We can make this even more fun by adding a daily or weekly calendar that is mostly pictures. You can buy these online or in the store where they'll put stickers for different activities. I think that that's good, but I think it's even better to use pictures in which Johnny was involved with getting those and picking those out and putting them up himself. The more pictures we bring in, the more routine we have, the decreased need to visualize the past or future for Johnny, the less stress and the better. Now, I told you we'd get to consequences. When it comes to consequences, we want to first set clear and specific boundaries with clear and specific right now consequences. Not, Johnny, you're going to lose this for a week. Johnny, this is the boundary that we had. This was the action. This is what's going to happen right now. Not in the future, not for a length of time, just right now. This is especially important for those of you who have what we call a super compliant child. We'll often see a kiddo who's 14 years old, whose nervous system's been stuck in this early part of the hierarchy. They never went through that rebellious 2 or 3 years old that often gets referred to as the terrible 2s or 3-nagers. Now, listen, again, we know that behaviors aren't bad, they're just a window to the brain, and around that 2 to 3 years old, we have those terms because children learn to push boundaries. They learn what's acceptable and they learn to not. And they absolutely should do that. It's part of development. But for a child who never went through that, as we start to get their nervous system developing, well, they're going to do that. They're gonna push boundaries. They're gonna push back. It's necessary, and it's a good thing. It should be celebrated. But we need to be prepared to show them where the boundary is. They need to learn that when they push, this is what happens. And they have to have predictability. The same boundary, the same consequence, predictable every single time. When this happens, this is the response. This is the boundary, this is the consequence. That is how we parent from a brain-based lens. Whether our child likes it or not, and typically in the current moment, they don't like it, boundaries create safety and control. Boundaries are predictable. When we set this up, when we get their nervous system unwinding, when we employ right now strategies, when we employ brain-based games and exercises to help their brain ascend the developmental trajectory, we can start to look for the wins. And this can show up different ways for different children. It'll often freak parents out when their child starts to remember and recall things like they never did. Like, where the heck did that come from? I didn't even know you were paying attention. And it'll freak us out even more, especially when they start engaging in the planning of future events. And again, that's a win. Now, full transparency. And I feel like I have to say this here, especially if you're somebody who I gave this video specifically to for specific reasons. How our child will typically start to engage in planning and the future is maybe more on the naughty side. We talked about how they'll push back, but maybe they start to plan things in a way that pushes boundaries. Now, planning around pushing boundaries looks like things like lying. Or maybe they start hiding snacks or food in their room for later. Now, at first, we can cross our arms and be like, Johnny, I told you not to do that. That's not cool. The food's going to go bad. It's good, blah, 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 blah. And we have all the different parent things. But let's celebrate the win of. They were able to plan the future. They were able to visualize what that looked like and come up with a plan to be able to get there. That is a win. Now, still set boundaries, but give yourself a pat on the back, right? Because you're doing a good job. Setting this time hierarchy translates to more attentiveness in the present, as well as less anxiety around events, because we can better visualize and predict what is coming. Prediction decreases stress. Stress decreases fight or flight, and it lets them get out of their bubble and into the world around them. In fact, getting out of the bubble of self and engaging with others, then understanding facial expression, then comprehending emotion is its very own hierarchy. And we call that the self-awareness hierarchy. So click the box in the corner of this video to learn more about the self-awareness hierarchy, what this looks like, what the right now strategies that you can employ are, and get ready to celebrate your wins. I'll see you there. I hope you guys had a great time learning about how time develops in the brain. That's my pun of the day. The next hierarchy is going to be really important. Click the video down on the bottom to learn about the abstract hierarchy, or how our children's nervous system learns to go from picking out an object all the way to understanding symbols, or essentially how a word like the word house actually means the house that we live in. I'll see you there.